Right then, so mandrakes, innit? That's what we was talking about this week. Magical mandrakes. Chris, mandrakes. How do you tell a mandrake? Is hashtag
What?
fake mandrake mayaples? Is that actually a mandrake? I have the official answer from our friend Lady Poison.
What'd
So
she say?
you're trying to convince me that a mayapple is a mandrake. I'm saying it's a fake mandrake. Oh, by the
Not a
way,
fake mandrake.
someone on the show behind the scenes has decided to put a warning graphic content on here, Chris.
Well, that's
Do
for
you
you,
think I
surely,
should
not
take that
me.
personally? Should we take that personally?
Nah.
Does that mean you can get your tits out now?
I'm not talking about my tits on.
Okay, we'll talk fake mandrakes then. Fake mandrake.
Come on, what did Lady Poison say?
She said it's part of the Buttercup family. Draw your own conclusions from that.
Oh, okay. So she's got technical about it.
Yeah.
Technically, it is a mandrake. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called mandrake, would it?
No, that's not how it works. Because, I mean, mandrakes, they've got a lot of history to them. They're very magical.
Yeah.
And whenever you've got anything with a bit of history, a bit of magic, and that people want, then you'll have a business people exploiting and selling them fake things. Like ecstasy. If you buy ecstasy, how do you know it's actual ecstasy? How do you know
See,
it's
that's
not
why
like
graphic content is going across the bottom there,
talcum
because you're
powder and
talking about
stuff like
ecstasy.
that? You know, you order some powdered mandrake. Is it going to get real mandrake in it? Is it going to be powdered? Is it going to be cut?
No,
Is
that's not what I'm
it
saying.
Rose Mandragora officinarum? Because that's
Yeah,
the
but
real one, isn't it?
that's just those snotty traditional witches like that Lady Poison
Or we
who
say we
go
don't
about
listen to traditional witches.
or go about specifics like that.
Right.
It is American mandrake. Is
American mandrake.
Yes, is a mayapple.
The mayapple, but it's not a mandrake though, is it?
It's part of the mandrake.
I don't know.
The only way you're splitting hairs would be because it's not part of the nightshade family. But so is the tomato.
Right.
That doesn't make a tomato a mandrake.
I'm not asking if it's necessarily a mandrake. I'm asking if it's the mandrake. The mandrake.
No,
right?
no. That's
It
not what
is
you
the
said.
mandrake.
You said it's not a mandrake.
Is it a mandrake?
Not is it the mandrake? The mandrake is different.
So the mandrake that people are talk about in the folklore, not the hashtag fake mandrake. We want the Mandragora officinarum. So the one that you turn into a mannequin.
Yeah.
The traditional witches use. That's that one, isn't it? That one. I got to point that way. That way. That
like I said,
that's that one, isn't it? Mandragora officinarum. That's the legit one. If you ain't
European
using that,
mandrake.
you're a fake, aren't you?
No.
No?
No, because technically you can go make a mannequin out of white bryony, like they did.
Right.
That's fake. That's counterfeit. That's people trying to make money out of not being able to get hold of the real stuff.
Okay. Right. In the comments, people that want to listen and write the comments, you tell us whether you think that Mandragora officinarum is the mandrake, and whether you would accept mayapple as a mandrake. So, for example, if you asked us a witch to make you a magical, I don't know, should we say a magical familiar or a mannequin or something like that? Say you wanted to make one, and you wanted to do it the proper way, the traditional method that Lady Poison would approve of, and then you ordered a mandrake and a mayapple turned up, would you be happy or disappointed? People that are listening and are watching, you tell us. Is it Mandragora officinarum, the one that you want? Or would you be happy for us to send a shitty old mayapple? You know? Because we need to know this important stuff in order to continue. So Catherine Veronica says no.
Of course she would.
She
she's going to
says, no,
side with
you
you.
need the real legit stuff. We got someone in from Tokyo. The person from Tokyo says, we have tree here that kills and is called urishi. The bark is poisonous and is used as a lacquer on bowls and cups here in Japan. That's interesting, isn't it? We've also got Buddhist priests used to make tea from the bark. Oh, that's interesting. I think I've heard about that. It's that self-mummification where you drink that, you lock yourself in a cave and then you drink the tea, and then if you end up essentially mummifying yourself successfully, then you're essentially, you know, elevated. I think there's a tradition there, isn't it? I know that
something about ascension
from that's some sort of monk thing. But yeah, Chris, you're my favourite. Liam's cruel. Well, let's ignore that comment. You know I can kick
now you
people
put it up
out,
on the
Catherine
screen.
Veronica. I got a button that does it. Okay, watch out. You can go off with your fake mandrakes.
I didn't say that they weren't the official. I'm just saying that there are other mandrakes.
I'm siding with Liam at this point for full access. Siding with for crying out loud.
So basically, they love me more. That's all that matters.
Well, we won't take that poll because my ego wouldn't take that. But at the end of the day, how many clients go to you and swap over to your side versus how many come from you and swap over to the dark side with me? I mean, when we did Witch Wars 1, how many of them joined my team?
Yeah, but that's because you made you the bad team.
The bad team is the good team.
If they'd have put me as the one hex in that week, then I'd have won that popularity contest.
Don't know. You're all love and light, aren't you? Isn't that what they say? If you got it in yourself to hex someone.
Since when, with you talking about my rose quartz all the time?
Right. So, going back to the subject, mandrakes, mandragora, Satan's apple. That is what we're talking about this week. Okay, so we've both attempted to grow mandrakes from scratch, haven't we?
Yeah.
Did it work out very well?
They didn't particularly like me. I don't know if I'm saturnine enough.
Well, I got on really well with them, and then eventually I moved them outside to the garden, and they started getting eaten, and then they died, and then they came back, and then they got out completely. So something wanted to eat my mandrakes. So I will attempt to do it again, but we're kind of coming to the conclusion
I want to try again.
That essentially, if you want to work with mandrake to make a mannequin, and we'll come up to that in the future, not obviously in the future of the episode, it's probably best to actually grow it from seed. So in order...
But then I was doing a load of reading in preparation for this, because I actually tried this week, and they were saying it's notoriously hard to do in the UK, which is why they used to use white and black bryony as good counterfeit, because it's difficult to grow here.
Right.
So maybe it doesn't like the UK, and it's not my fault.
Lady Poison's got a load of mandrakes, though, hasn't she?
Yeah,
but is pure poison, so
she is pure poison, so you know she's going to be able to grow them.
This is true.
She probably cried once, and they just sprouted from the ground.
Do you mean she just walks along the ground like in the local park, and in her trail there's a storm cloud that follows, and you get like the dark that just comes over all overcast, and then all little mandrakes pop up from the ground. Is that what you imagine?
And mandrakes and poisonous berries and all sorts of mushrooms just sprout up wherever she's laid her feet.
I would say that there's something in that. If it's difficult to grow, that it does mean that you have to take a little bit of time with it. And I think given that if you're using mandrake to make a mannequin, so essentially a spirit, you know, and bonding with that spirit and raising it, I don't think that should be an easy thing. I think there should be a little bit of effort put in. Like keeping
not
a
when
fish
you've got kind of, it's
a little
childlike,
bit of effort, but
isn't it?
not too much effort.
No, I think it's a bit more effort than that.
It does seem to be.
So, but yeah, I guess that because you're growing a spirit from scratch and bonding with that, I guess it makes the most sense that it takes time and work and effort. I also don't think it would like you growing multiple. I think you would have to kind of grow one at a time. But that's why I don't particularly like growing things from seed, because otherwise you have to give stuff away. In order to, because and I don't think it would particularly like that
giving
either.
Stuff away.
But going from the no, it's not that I don't like giving stuff away. Don't twist my words. It's just something like that. I'm not sure I should be giving it away.
Right. Okay.
It's not like we're growing tomatoes. But even if they are related.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think it depends. If you're using Mandrake, like the real one or the fake ones, in herbal medicine, possibly not such a good idea. Maybe not do that because it is poisonous. So maybe stay away from that unless you know exactly what you're doing. And even then, there's a danger to it. If you're using it as an ingredient for a spell casting and magic, how do you feel like that about that? Because I don't feel very comfortable with that, because I only really feel Mandrake as the spirit. I would be uncomfortable with crushing up Mandrake and using it as a general ingredient. I'd be more comfortable using it as the physical vessel for a spirit, familiar, that kind of thing, like the old mannequin. So I don't feel that comfortable with. It's one of the rare ingredients, actually. I don't feel comfortable using as a power source for spells, because I think that I've got a bit more of an appreciation for it, and I wouldn't want to do that. But obviously, it's very powerful. It can be used for ingredients and spell casting. It's just my personal preference that I wouldn't really want to do that. We got a couple.
I think that also comes from the kind of not wanting to give it away either as plants, in the sense that it is that kind of bond, child mother kind of bond that you're creating. Like, because I wouldn't package up an egregore and hand an egregore over, so surely it works the same principle. If you'd spent that time building an egregore or an homunculus, it wouldn't make sense for you to then hand it over willy-nilly to friends.
Like a parrot, because parrots they like go on and on and on, don't they? If you want to buy a parrot, you've got to kind of leave it to your kids and their kids. So making a mannequin from a mandrake, so making a spirit from a mandrake, you've got to think about it as more than one lifetime type of work, and that you can pass it on. Because I know our friend Lady Poison, she hasn't harvested her mandrake, so they're still growing. But the point in which you kind of make the mandrake is the reaping part, because essentially mandrakes are kind of Saturnine. So you're dealing with that Saturnian current, that death current, that kind of thing. So they do make for a very, very powerful kind of spirit ally, egregore, whatever you want to call it, spirit. But that reaping part is when you really kind of activate it and allow it to turn into a spirit form. So that's a kind of a sacred thing. There's lots of rituals and stuff like that that might go with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we're not giving it enough juice, and I mean literally the right juice, because obviously you've got all those myths about mandrakes being born at the feet of hanging men from the blood, body fat, and the semen falling from a hanging man on his noose. So is that because we're not paying the right price?
So you've kept it inside when you started growing it, because I kept them inside at the beginning in the windowsill, and they were fine, and they were growing, and it was only when I transferred it outside. So were you saying that you need to go out on a night time and kind of give it a water?
give it a nocturnal emission.
Give it a nocturnal emission under a full moon. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, maybe we're just not making the right sacrifices here.
Maybe.
Maybe it means juices of a different variety.
It means a lot of juices.
Because I'm happy to go hangmen. That's fine. Or is that
what sort of hangmen are you talking about?
That's what I'm just going to say. Is that a misnomer? And actually, I'm supposed to find a hung man?
I've got a bit confused. Do you mean dead hung man?
I mean dead hung man.
The dead hung men, have they also got to be hung?
Maybe they've got to be well endowed for you to justify
so
it.
you need the blood of a dead,
but then are you prepared to go around jerking off men that are tied to sticks? Because that's basically what I'm kind of suggesting here.
I'm sure we could get behind that. Right, so we've got another comment. Witches here used to gain revenge and make a voodoo doll out of straw and nail them to the tree. Then you give up something that you love and sacrifice to ask the gods to bring karma onto another. Interesting. I wonder how old that tradition is with the karma thing. It's quite an interesting one. Fed with blood is an option. Drops fed to it regularly. Tying it to the creator. Yeah, that seems a little bit more traditional witchcraft, doesn't it? Feeding it your own blood. And don't they feed it cigars as well?
Yeah,
and,
there's lots of traditions for feeding it all sorts of
that.
offerings,
but would you
isn't it?
feed it when
that's normally
it's
after
growing? Or do you feed it after you've reaped it? Dried it?
That's a question.
Because
I would have assumed you feed and make offerings as it's growing, because it's the growing of the homunculus kind of mannequin spirit, isn't it, that you're growing? So you'd kind of hope that you make the offerings as you're going along.
But I think of it more like as it's growing, it's more like a cocoon. And it's only when it hatches is when you reap it, essentially. And then people make those little coffin-shaped boxes, don't they? And then start feeding it then as it dries out. And then when it's dried out, that's when kind of the spirit has matured. And that's when it starts to working for you.
I think Gemma joined from that comment when we were talking about jerking off hung men tied to sticks.
What a time to join. Yeah, so there we go. We've given away the secrets of the Mandrake. And how to get them to grow.
What was I going to say? Right. Okay. How do you feel about this one? So obviously they're mannequin shaped, and there's, you can use them for all sorts of magics for creating homunculi, etc. How do you feel about the Egyptian feeling? So we've had them since the kind of New Kingdom is kind of the earliest reference to them. How do you feel about them being associated with Aphrodite and love cults as an aphrodisiac? Because obviously they base that on how the flowers look like hanging testicles. Right. So obviously the idea is that they are somehow related to fertility, and they were used in some cults all the way up to kind of the Middle Ages for curing infertility, and that obviously it wasn't imbibed, so you didn't eat it, because obviously it's poisonous, but you didn't eat it in order to cure it. It was something that you put underneath your pillow, like the dried. So I guess there are lots of things where you have, particularly in the Greek Roman traditions, and therefore some of the Egyptian ones, of kind of phallic shaped dried roots. So I'm kind of wondering, I don't know if it would be the root, because it's not clear if they're referring to the root or if they're just saying kind of doctrine of signatures, kind of talking about it's shaped like this, therefore it can be used for. So because it's shaped, the roots are somewhat phallic, and the flowers are like hanging testicles or ovaries, that therefore it could be used for love magic. How would you feel about it?
I wouldn't. I think that it's one of those things that, because it's an extremely powerful, really, it's a powerful relationship to have with a spirit ally. The fact that it could be turned into a homunculus, there's so much power behind it. It can really add to a magical practitioner's practice to work with one and use one. And it is essentially like an assistant at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'd say that if you tried to work with it for the majority of types of magic, it's going to have some benefit. So whether you're going doctrine of signatures and you're wanting to use it for that, I'd think of it as literally kind of like one of those, if you're just purely going on the energetics and not going on the herbal medicine side of things, so just the pure magic side of things, I'd said that it's probably near enough as close to an all-rounder as it's possible to get. But an all-rounder from the fact that it's a powerful thing. Like, I could imagine if you had a magical system and you could only pick one plant to work with, then the Mandrake might be one of those things that you'd think, well, actually, you could do so much with it because of the nature of the power that it wields and the connection to Saturnine energy. Essentially, you're talking about ending limitations on anything. So
I just thought I'd ask, because obviously to us it's so iconic as a particular piece for using as a mannequin. I couldn't possibly imagine of another way to use it, but obviously to the ancients it was just another weed. They weren't cultivating it specifically. It was another weed, so it was a lot more readily available in those kind of hotter countries. And I guess so, because it's available, they look at it from all its options rather than specifically. Whereas we would think, okay, I'm growing this from seed. It's probably going to be 5-10 years before I can harvest it. It's not going to be the first couple of years until, it's going to be 5 to 10 years where it's a full-size mannequin for you to actually do it. So that for us, it's a long-term investment, isn't it? So you kind of wouldn't think about doing it any other way. So, but it was just more a case of I just thought bringing up the traditional uses of it and just kind of talking about, because obviously the Egyptians loved anything remotely phallic was used for all manner of rituals for fertility. What was that?
Some stuff's going down on the chat, right? We'll have to go through this. Okay. Catherine Veronica says a poison and a love magic. She's not liking that. She does do a lot of love magic, though. So
then there's nothing more intimate than death by poison.
Well, another person's put, where is it? I saw somewhere. William Gaskins. So Will's put, Catherine Veronica isn't love poison. And then my favourite one of all, from some foreigner Israelite. I can't read the first bit, but basically I send angels to wage attacks unlimited times, continuously, permanently, to against all of you all. I'm not sure that person can speak proper good English. Like, my English ain't that brilliant.
Your English ain't great, but that's because you're from Brazil.
But that's something quite different. So if we're getting angels sent with unlimited attacks...
Clearly he's not used to my arrangements with angels then, is he?
I was going to say, if he's sending angels to attack us, are you sure you've got enough cupboard space to have them all hog-tied?
I don't think I've got enough cupboard space. I don't think I've got enough hog ties.
Right. You might have to do like the Jesus thing where he makes more bread and stuff. You might have to do that with rope and hog ties. And you
turn them
might need
into
to have,
hundreds of them.
The Doctor Who TARDIS, where it's bigger on the inside. You might have to do that with one of your wardrobes.
I think I might have to do that. We'll convert one of the rooms into a TARDIS.
I mean, unlimited attacks of angels.
Just think of all the power they could use for that.
What's going to happen if we've got an unlimited amount of angels attacking us? What about all the stuff the angels is supposed to be doing?
I'm thinking, could we have a range of angel skull mugs? Because then we'd have an unlimited supply.
Angel skull mugs?
Yeah. What do you reckon?
We make some? We'll make some.
Let's make some. Let's find out.
Right.
We'll put them on the website. We'll make loads of money. It'd be great.
We'll make some for the thothwitchcraft.com website. They're not on there now, but at some point we're going to have angel skull mugs, apparently, which Chris is going to carve out the insides of the angels that are being sent to attack us, and then put a little mugs on them, because they are all mugs, aren't they?
Yeah, let's face it.
Now, what my main concern about this, though, is if you're killing all the angels, Chris, does that mean that the
who's going to do the law?
Have to run all the public transport? And if that's the case, do you think it might start running on time?
Maybe. I don't know what they're going to do.
Here, men eat this turtle that is called a supin. It bites and doesn't let go. Men drink the blood and eat the flesh. It is mixed with very poisonous snake hair and is used like Viagra.
Sounds delicious.
Over here we have this magic pill. It's a blue pill, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, called Viagra.
Yeah, called Viagra, which is now available without prescription. Go to your local Boots pharmacy now.
But I don't know if that works as well as Tiger Penis. I've heard Tiger Penis works well better.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard Tiger Penis is the way to, you know, really get harder than never before.
But how long does that last for? Because you don't want it to be like for like 2 days straight.
Well, hopefully long enough to feed a Mandrake, I'm hoping.
Fucking hell.
Put some on order.
We should do an episode of, I don't know, we could do it on Fausty Witches where we both try a tiger penis and see what it does.
I don't know if we can, but aren't they endangered? Should we really be promoting the fact that we're going to use tiger penises?
I'm sure one of our patrons can probably track it down somewhere. You know how dodgy they lot are.
Oh, maybe this Irene Takura woman will send us some.
Irene, any chance you could send us some tiger penis?
Apparently, they're really powerful, so we might only need one to share.
Okay.
We might not need one each.
I can share the pictures of the pill with you. You go ahead and do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, why not?
Anyway. I want a tiger penis now.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
I don't know, I'm just fascinated with it.
I don't think I'd want just the penis though. You'd want the claws.
I want a real
You'd
tiger.
Want the whole thing, wouldn't you?
I'd feel bad if I ordered a real tiger and then chopped its willy off. I feel bad about that.
I suppose. Like I said, they are endangered.
Are we going a bit sidetracking away from the
No, I asked you about aphrodisiacs. I asked you about aphrodisiacs. So that was technically on topic.
Okay. That's all right then.
Technically. And she did put the graphic warning on, so I feel like we need to use it.
Tiger penis is illegal to send.
Oh.
Damn.
Is it one of those things you can smuggle? Sorry, I just had a horrible
Can you just label the packaging?
Putting a tiger penis in a Johnny to shove it up your ass seems like half a job.
Just label it as like a pickle or something like that. I mean, those people who cosplay don't know what they're talking about. As long as they ain't drunk, they don't care.
Oh, okay.
What would be brilliant is if you could get the tiger penis, put it in a stuffed tiger teddy, and send that.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's legal.
That's probably not legal now.
I can't imagine it's legal. Anyway, back to the point.
Where does the Satan's apple thing come in? Because we named the episode that.
Oh, that'll be Middle Ages.
Well, I presumed it's Middle Ages, but where does that come from? Is it just because everything cool just happens to come from the devil?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
You've got to point out everything worse. Even though he's only mentioned like 3 times the entire Bible, apparently he's a really big deal.
Apparently so.
So I think the idea was that obviously lots of these plants get renamed, and anything that looks remotely phallic or testicle-like, all of a sudden has something to do with Satan. So, but yeah, it's just one of those common. I imagine the Satan part is to say it's poisonous, but you'd have to check with.
Well, the Satan's apple's got to be something to do with the Garden of Eden and the apple. They wasn't actually an apple, assuming that it was even a thing. Wouldn't have been an apple, would it? So is there essentially
more likely a quince if it was any kind of fruit.
Yeah, us witches, we find a new toy and something cool like the Mandrake, and then Jesus comes along and says, "Spoiling your fun now, guys." The angels will say, "I've got to spoil your fun. That's bad. Sorry, that's bad." Like sex before marriage. That Mandrake is going to send you to hell. What's hell? Well, we haven't invented that yet, but it will be coming along somewhere medieval time.
It's on the agenda.
Stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, stay tuned. Middle Ages. Satan's coming to a hell near you.
She can send some pills for men. Sorry, Irene, we really wanted the tiger penis.
We just want the tiger penis. We're not interested in the pills.
Send me a link and I'll send you. Post it on the Thoth Witchcraft Facebook page for us. Thoth Witchcraft Facebook page. I wonder if I can put a link to that, Chris. Can I put a link to that?
I'm sure we can.
I'm not too great with this social media stuff. I'll try and put a link to that. You keep them all chatting, and I'll do some technical stuff. All right.
Oh, okay. So the other main use for it was as a painkiller, so as a narcotic. So the root would have been used to kind of knock you out, make you sleepy, etc. while they did surgery. So all sounds good to me. But that's why it became counterfeit. So why they wanted, because it was quite popular as an anaesthetic, that's why they started using white and black bryony as a knockoff variety. So that is #fake mandrakes for you. But technically that's got nothing to do with any May apples. So yeah. And then are we actually going to talk about making mannequins at some point?
I suppose we should.
So, because I don't know if they've actually come for all the tiger penis talk, to be honest. But then they are coming to watch us, so maybe they were.
Mean, let's talk about making a mannequin then. So you better explain what a mannequin actually is first.
Okay, so not in kind of Harry Potter goodness of the screaming little mandrakes, although that is a big part of the lore that comes with it, to the point that they used to tie the leafy part above ground.
Facebook page is at Thoth Witchcraft, so I think if you just look at that, the Thoth Witchcraft Facebook page, stick all of your Viagra pills and the like, Irene, on that, and if you've got some tiger penis pictures, you can put that on there as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
So yeah, so to go with the shrieking idea that you get from Harry Potter, that is supposed to knock you out. The idea was that actually it would actually kill you instantly if you were to hear the scream of a mandrake as it was pulled out of the ground. Because obviously it's parsnip shaped, kind of like two legs. That's why it's used, obviously, to create what they call a mannequin. But the shrieking part comes from this fear because it's person shaped vaguely. That they use that idea to go with that, and then along with the screaming that apparently it does when you pluck it out of the ground. So they used to tie dogs to leashes to it and get the dogs to pull it out.
Circle of salt around it and tie the mandrake to the dog, so the dog pulls it out and essentially triggers the curse and dies. But do you think it was that people died because if they pulled the mandrake out, they ended up killing themselves and poisoning and stuff like that?
Probably.
Or do you think it's more than likely. But I mean, other poisonous plants don't necessarily have all that kind of folklore that goes with them either.
No, you don't hear this about other parts of the nightshade family, do you? So maybe it is something to do with that. Like I said, I haven't handled mandrake root with bare hands, so I don't know if it is something that burns the skin or is able to be absorbed through the skin. I'm not sure. All I know is I've got it written down here.
They use mandrake as an ingredient in some flying ointments as well.
Yeah.
So I've seen that happen. But obviously that's dried mandrake root, and you've got to be careful with that. So don't go.
That's then added to a salve. And then applied to body parts again. There you go, body parts.
Yeah.
Flying ointments, a suppository. So, if it's the traditional method. I wonder if Lady Poison would say that's the only way it can be used.
Well, Lady Poison
or do they apply it to the skin?
Ointments. Don't Lady Poison do her flying ointments via tincture now?
Oh, okay. So she can imbibe them.
A little bit of oil on the wrist, I think it is, isn't it? Whereas I think traditionally you're talking about mixing it with fat and then slather it on your genitals.
Yeah.
And riding the
broomstick. Like really? Did you have to do that? I hate that noise. I
didn't have to, but I did want to.
Anyway,
so I did.
But yeah, going down the kind of poisonous part. So the poisonous part in it is called solanine, which apparently has a natural ability to ward off insects. There you go. Fake boring trivia for you. But can cause delirium and gastro stress. So I imagine if that's the active part. Now, bearing in mind, tomatoes are the same family, but they don't have this chemical in it. So I'm wondering if actually, yes, if it's absorbed through the skin in a salve, then you would assume that is potent enough for you to handle the roots and possibly kill somebody. Possibly. Anyway, going back to mannequins. So yeah, so the idea is that once you finally got your dog and killed your dog, digging it up because it screamed it to death. But I suppose it would be technically more active than that, because aren't they supposed to be supersonic hearers, sensitive to sound? So, the sound, maybe it's just not audible for us, but it kills the dog anyway.
Well, one would presume that it's psychic sound.
Well, I'd have assumed that, but we're talking about the medieval period here.
Medieval mundanes.
Yeah, they hadn't discovered psychics. Those don't come along until after the spiritualists arrive.
The old cunning folk,
Yeah, but they didn't call it psychic art, did they? That's a spiritualist thing.
You've got your little doggy to pull it out of the ground. You've got your mandrake now. What are you going to do?
Well, you need to dry it out. It needs to be desiccated until it's dry.
And you wouldn't chop it up, would you? And you wouldn't have a dehydrator, so you'd have to do it the old-fashioned way.
Hang it up for weeks on weeks until it's dry. And
would you do it for a year and a day, Chris?
Oh, don't. Did you just say that? I don't think the Wiccans have been told about the mandrake.
I think they have. I think it's a correspondence in one of Scott Cunningham books.
I would be amazed if mandrake is actually listed in Scott Cunningham. It probably is actually, but yeah.
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, it's one of the most famous plants, isn't it, from an occult perspective?
Yeah, but I was surprised I couldn't find it in Culpeper the other day.
Really?
It's not mentioned in Culpeper unless it's mentioned under another pseudonym.
Surely it's mentioned under something else.
So, but I couldn't find it as known as mandrake by then, which would make more sense because we get it from the Sumerian word for it. So you'd say the word. You'd think the word mandrake's been around a long time. So, but it's not in there as that. So maybe it's under there as Satan's apples.
Huh, that's strange. I have got a copy somewhere.
But yeah, I'll have to go back again and check.
Copy?
I've got a copy of Culpeper. That's what I was looking in.
It's not in your one.
I couldn't find it, although it's a big document. But I couldn't find it in there, which is surprising for me.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
Culpeper wouldn't have mentioned it.
I can find it.
Oh, okay. He's gone again.
I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Oh, okay.
So don't say anything. Lauren's just said, not mentioned in Mother Nature's Herbal by Llewellyn either.
Well, that's because everything that Llewellyn publishes is a crock of shit.
So I didn't say that. Lauren did. Not Lauren. You're not Lauren. You're Liam. So
I'm Liam. Yeah.
You're a Liam. But yeah, so I didn't see it in Culpeper, which might explain why it's not in Culpeper, and therefore might not be in anything that's been published by Llewellyn in the last 30 years since he died. What was I trying to say? Mannequins. So once fully dried out,
yeah.
That's when you would then use it in order to as a mannequin. So at that point, it's dressed with oils, etc., and the bond and its arrangement for what you're expecting. Oh, Lauren has found it in Culpeper.
I presumed it was in Culpeper. It surely must be. So would you carve it or anything like that as it's drying out to make a face go on it or anything, or would you just prefer to keep it pure?
I don't like doing things like that, but then some people do. To me, the face should appear as part of the growing and the bonding arrangement. So I don't feel like you should necessarily need to shape it.
Right.
But then I'm the sort of person that doesn't draw faces on puppets, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't
So you are a bit of a weirdo, is
occur
what
to
you're
me.
saying.
It wouldn't occur to me to do something like that because I know who it is and what it what it looks like in its spiritual body. So I would assume that's how I would interact with a mandrake if I ever managed to mature one. But what about you?
I probably would.
Yeah, but you're a bit dyslexic though, aren't you? So
no, it's not that. I think that because it's one of those things. If you're going through, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't have done it the way that you've described it anyway. Because this is more of a old-fashioned folklore way of doing it. But we would have most likely grown it at home ourselves from seed in a pot or something. So really, you're talking about knowing roughly what size it is as grown. You've grown it for a couple of years, by this point. So you are kind of already interacting with it. But I think the final character of putting it, because you're supposed to emerge itself, isn't it? Because you've got female mandrakes and male mandrakes as well. And I don't know. I think that the time of reaping, I'd be interested to see whether I'd get an impression of a face that I then have to put on. Because as it dries, if you're carving like the old Applehead dolls, as it dries, it's going to change anyway. So you've got your initial start, and then it will turn the face into what it wants to do as it kind of shrinks and, dries. Sorry. Irene's got 2 pictures for us. I hope one of them's a tiger penis, Irene. I really do.
I'll be disappointed if it's not.
I'd be very disappointed if it's not.
So I probably wouldn't, but like I said, that would be because I would expect it to have its full personality by the time it's kind of birthed and it's finally ripe, and then it's just a case of working with it. But it's one of those things where it's a very specific kind of creation for me, and still going back to the it is kind of, like I said, family guardian or something like that you described before is probably a more suitable arrangement for a mannequin. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what else I would use it, because it seems like such a lot of effort in order to go and use it in a traditional method of any kind of puppet, which sometimes it seems to be implied as if that's what would be done. And I just don't understand why witches of old would have done something like that. That is a really long-term investment in order to then just use it as a standard puppet, when you're thinking she could have,
I
scalped
wouldn't
him.
imagine using it as a standard puppet. It's going to be essentially familiar that you pass down through the ages, and so it's going to be something that's part of the family, because you're supposed to treat them like it's part of the family.
Yeah.
You're supposed to keep them. They say traditional witches. They tell the traditional witches, or young traditional witches, you get your mandrake and you keep it in your little coffin and you feed it in that, and then you put it. Is it up in the fireplace or somewhere in the center of the house, hidden?
It's hearth.
In the hearth, isn't it?
Wherever you would consider the hearth to be.
Yeah.
So, because most of us don't have open fires anymore, but yeah, traditionally it would have been held in the hearth.
So when would you reap it then? Would you do a reaping in like Samhain, something like that, because it's kind of Saturnine?
Yeah. Being me, I would probably go to that. It'd be part of the kind of biggest part of the year for me, I guess. So it'd either be there, or I guess Beltane, if it was going to be another, where the veil's the thinnest. So Samhain or Beltane, just to kind of get as close as possible to, because other things I would possibly use, if you're not creating a spirit from scratch, is whether or not you're just creating the husk to hold a spirit, in which case you could potentially put a different spirit transfer into there at those points of the year. So an actual family member that has previously been around, maybe.
Well, technically, you could utilize a Mandrake as their coven fetch, and if you're getting it to fetch a spirit, I mean, it's not outside of the realms of possibility for that to hold, certainly when the veil's thin, to hold a human spirit temporarily.
Yeah.
You know, or even bind it to a location and stuff. So if you wanted great grandma to visit you and stay with you for October, to celebrate October, she needs a place to stay, and you're not going to put her in the spare room because she's dead. So you might put her in the Mandrake.
Exactly. Temporarily put her in the Mandrake for a few weeks.
So Lauren is said that he's also in Grieve. I can't say it. Say it.
Greaves Modern Herbal or Von Bingen's Physica.
Herbal. She's going to post pictures of all three in the comments in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. So
okay. I'm hoping that this will start a nice big discussion about it.
Catherine Veronica's put a link on, but what you really need to do, Irene, is to get yourself in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group, because that's where all the stuff's going down. Tiger penises galore in there. It will be by the end of the week, Chris, won't it?
Just imagine what this lot will do, what Lauren will put in there over the next couple of weeks.
We should have Tiger Penis Week.
Tiger Penis Week. Although she's in California, I bet they've got a really good Chinatown over there. I bet there's Tiger Penis galore available. Maybe Lauren can send us some Tiger Penis.
Oh, that would be brilliant. We can pay the postage and pack in.
Yeah. Lauren will pay the postage.
Send us a
if you send us some Tiger Penis.
And don't chicken out and send us some of that Tiger Bomb stuff either, because we can get that
we can get that shit. I can get that anywhere.
I can get that from Aldi now, I think.
So, don't need that.
Although apparently it's very good, Tiger Bomb.
It is good stuff. Although I just use wild orange now for my migraine.
Oh, you use wild orange for fucking everything, don't you? If you can fix it with a bit of wild orange and a fucking charm bag, Chris ain't interested. Because you can fix everything with a bit of wild orange and a fucking charm bag.
But that's what being a super witch is about, right?
Well, I don't know. If you was a super witch, you wouldn't be using the charm bag or the flying ointment, would you?
I don't use flying ointments. Do you mean wild orange?
Bags, charm bags, whatever. Because I'm looking at this, right? So what are we thinking about this? I found a link. True Mandrake oil, $4.99.
That sounds cheap.
Freya's Cauldron, not the real Freya. This is some Wiccan version of a Freya, a real person, not a goddess. Would you trust something like that? Why would you use a Mandrake oil that you buy from the internet? Because she doesn't tell you what to do with it. And it is a bit more expensive because their other ones are £2.60. So $4.99 is quite the investment.
But would that be like one of those Bach flower essences, though? Would that actually even have any Mandrake in it?
With a whole Mandrake root. Then, when ready, the oil is put into an 8 milliliter vials. The root is then cut into pieces, and a small piece is placed in each vial. So you do get a tiny little piece of a Mandrake, and it does say Mandragora officinarum.
Okay, but do you trust her?
Well, I wouldn't trust her as far as I can throw her, but I'm wondering what someone would want to buy a Mandrake aura for, because this is really spellcrafted ingredients. This is cutting up those poor little defenseless mandrakes before they've even been born, essentially. Because they're born through death, mandrakes. They're born through reaping.
Yes.
Which is quite cool. Hence why they're Saturnine. I'll end up going down the rabbit hole now. Let's not check out Freya's Cauldron.
No, let's not go through Freya's Cauldron and what else she's got cooking in there, because it's not necessary.
So, what we really need to do is check out Mandrake oil on Etsy, because that's a good source. They're all $4.99 apart from this one, which is £1.90. So herbal Mandrake. They put it down as health luck and something else. Wishes.
Health, luck, and wishes. Wow.
Yeah.
Although I suppose you could push it with witches, I guess, but very, very loose.
I don't know. For whatever reason, looking at all these images of a mandrake oil makes me feel a little uncomfortable. It don't seem right. It's like when you see taxidermy of people. It's like, no, that's not right. Have you ever seen human taxidermy?
I have. I don't get offended. I keep threatening Mags at work. We're going to turn her into a coat holder. She says she loves working with us so much that we should have. And I said that's fine. I'll get you turned into a coat rack when you go, and we'll have her holding out her hands so you can just put things in her hands.
Oh gosh. So she'll be like from the Witchcraft Museum, that waxworks of that old cunning woman. It'll basically be like that, but more useful because she'll be able to hook your coat.
Yeah, far more useful and better dressed. She won't smell of shit.
Like real Nana. Lauren says our Chinatowns are amazing. Happy to pay postage though. I'm not sure how much a tiger penis costs.
No,
Lauren,
I'm not sure.
Look up
do we need a
how
whole
and
one
where
though?
you get a tiger penis, and you come back to us, okay? Because we're very interested in doing a live show where we both take a bit of tiger penis and see what happens.
So yeah,
Chris, you do it first.
I was waiting for it, expecting me to do it first. That's fine. I'm not
well,
pussy like you.
What we could do is we could just get Daniel to do it, because he's basically like you're essentially a test dummy.
Oh, he's looking more and more like one as he loses more and more of his hair.
Oh, test dummy. We need to get one of those stickers, like the test dummy stickers stick on his head.
Oh, his birthday's coming up soon. We'll have to get him an
tiger
outfit.
Penis.
Yeah. Okay, we've got you this to try out. We need to tell you. We need to know what your results are.
Oh.
So.
Right. So we've got some serious advice now. Unless you are extremely sure of the source, it's never good to buy herbs. More often than not, they are not what they say they are, like seafood. How to check to see if you're getting authentic tiger penis?
Well, I'd expect there to be a photograph of the tiger looking very happy. So, but then is that me just assuming that the tiger penis would arrive erect? Because surely it doesn't, because you wouldn't have a blood flow anymore.
Well, I think the only true way to choose whether the herbs and that you're buying are authentic, if you go into Chinatown, is if in the shop there's a little mogwai gremlin in a cage. Because if that's it, then you know this is some legit magic shop, right?
Yeah.
But if there's no gremlin mogwai in the cage, it's probably a fake. It's probably not a real occult magic shop.
I think that's safe.
We've got to get a gremlin to put in a cage.
Well, I think we'd need a whole collection though.
What would happen if you fed the gremlin?
Wow. Okay. We need to stop talking about tiger penis now and focus on mandrakes.
Okay, we'll go back to the mandrakes if we must. So what's the next section that we're talking about when it comes to the mandrake? Because we've got about 5 minutes or so left.
Okay. So firstly, is there any questions about what to use with them? I think we've probably spent this podcast ruling out more things not to use them for than necessarily what to use them for. And like I say, the best thing for them to be used is as familiars or fetches.
I would say so.
I'm hoping they would understand what those are. Did we cover them in the? We didn't do the egregore one on here, did we?
Because you're familiar in your cat or nothing. It's basically a shape-shifting spirit that doesn't have a corporeal body necessarily. So I was thinking actually when we were talking about designing the Jumanji board game, because that needs to be powered by a spirit. Well, if we use the mandrake to power it.
Well, it would be interesting.
So we could crucify a little mandrake inside of the game and attach it. It's got little limbs, We can attach it inside the board game, and then that can hold the spirit of the game. So really, I think that it's just the perfect kind of vessel to hold a spirit. But I would be uncomfortable with using it as a spell ingredient, but that's just me personally.
I think I'm still with you on that, on the basis that that is a lot of time to invest in something to then just use it as.
Yeah.
Like I'd probably use the leaves or whatever, maybe. Or some of the flowers.
Whilst it's alive, I would use bits and pieces, definitely. But I mean, in terms of reaping it to chop up into bits, I'd be a little bit uncomfortable.
Just seems like a waste.
Yeah.
It just seems like a waste.
I do like the idea of using it whilst it's alive to actually, because if it's already helping with your magic and you're already working together magically as well, then obviously that
better
would
bond.
Help with when you do come to reap it and birth it, that you've already got that kind of rapport to a certain extent with the spirit there. But yeah, I would definitely say it would be an experience that you'd probably get a lot from, and I really do want to try growing Mandrake again, because I think that I'd get a lot from that, and I don't necessarily see that happening. I think that I'd stay away from buying Mandrake as an ingredient to use, and maybe try growing it yourself and seeing if when you do grow it, whether your thoughts about how to use it might change.
Yeah. No, I think it's important that the bond is there in something like that, more so than in any kind of other plant ally arrangement.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of working with the general spirit of the Mandrake. Like, it is definitely designed there for you to kind of push it to a whole new level. But like you said, there is that kind of reaping, transformative ability at that kind of, technically, when you dig it up, that is the end of its life. After that, you're using you're using it as a purely magical object after that.
Yeah, well, I'd see it as the birth. So you kind of like have Christians and they're born again. I'd see it as the kind of cocoon growing whilst it's alive, but only in death is it actually alive, because it's a plant of death. Which, speaking of which, our bloodthirsty New Age friend, who is no longer happy, lovey and dovey, and is now turning a bit naughty, Catherine Veronica, she says, could it be used in a killing curse? Now, here's the thing, because you also said you want to fetch, right? So if you were thinking about this, if you wanted to use Mandrake, you would probably use the Mandrake as a fetch. So you would actually use it as a spirit. So cultivate it and grow the spirit, and then send the spirit to go and kill someone. That's what you'd probably do.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't use it necessarily as an ingredient in a spell. What I would use it as a helper. So, because you could kill lots of people that way. When it's killed a certain
use it over and over again.
Send it off to kill someone else,
Yeah.
So again, I think we're both a little uncomfortable with using the Mandrake and harvesting it just for spell work. If when it's alive, you wanted to use that, I would just see it as something that kind of naturally connects to that Saturnine current. So I probably would use it for that. So maybe the leaves or something.
The leaves or the flowers or the berries.
And I might use it for that. But I'd use it for anything Saturnian. So anything to do with Saturn, associate with Saturn. So anything limitation-wise.
Yeah.
I think that's it, isn't it? So any more questions, then let us know. Because it's going to be, we've got like a minute left. So if anyone's got any questions, write them in the comments. So what are we basically closing on then, Chris? Be careful, because there's a lot of fake mandrakes out there. Definitely go ahead and try and raise a mannequin yourself, but be aware that you'll need to pass it on to someone after you die, because it'll outlive you. Like a parrot. More useful than a parrot. Do you think you could teach a mandrake to swear?
Oh, okay.
Probably. Yeah.
And it could probably be a bit more specific as well. So it only swears at the people you want it to swear at.
So, would it make a good vessel to hold a spirit that needs a cage, or is that a waste as well? That's an interesting one. See, I would say that mandrakes contain a lot of power. So really what you're talking about is if you were put, because it's supposed to hold a spirit of power and not confine that spirit, you're almost talking about putting like a spirit you don't like and trapping it in the mandrake. I would be uncomfortable with doing that because I'd think of that mandrake as kind of a bionic suit. It's gonna
you're
push the
giving
power
it power
of whatever you put in
not
it.
not restricting it.
Yeah, it's like one of those old Transformers mobile suit things. It's like, or an exoskeleton. It'll be more powerful by putting it in there just by the nature of it. I also am not entirely sure how many spirits would get on that well as housing in it, because it's pure Saturnine energy. So when we talked about putting dead people in it for a temporary time, you're talking about using the spirit of the mandrake to go and get that dead person, bring it back and hold it there for a certain amount of time. So the mandrake's still there. It's just helping the spirit through, essentially, like holding open a doorway.
It would be strong enough to go and bind another spirit temporarily, but as the power of the mandrake itself, as opposed to being the housing for it. I think she's got it.
Yeah. So I mean, technically, you possibly could. What the first thing that springs to mind would be that it might backfire, in that you're essentially
giving something more
that's
power.
souped up and powerful, a souped up powerful vessel that's really specifically designed for a spirit. Because like spirits possessing people is a little different, because spirits aren't, unless they're spirits of the dead and that, they're not really used to inhabiting human bodies and stuff. But really, a mandrake, given its
would
nature,
give it a foothold in the physical.
In the physical, but not quite there. So if you put a spirit in a mandrake body, it probably would find it more easier to, interfere with the physical world. So I would think of it, a bit like what you've said. Saturnine power, not Saturnine binding. So I would say that a mandrake should only ever be used to put in a spirit that you want to work with, that you're friendly with, that you want to give power to, and it's not going to be your power, but as in you want to be powerful. And I think that because, much like how people treat animals differently, so you might treat a dog differently than a pet toad, because a dog's quite intelligent, and emotional and that. Mandrakes, when you're working with the plant allies and the spirit of the mandrake and that, I would treat that with a little bit, the sort of respect that it deserves, because it's actually very close to, working with a spirit, as opposed to just another plant ally. Is closer to human, perhaps.
Individual with individual personality.
Even a mandrake seed would hold power. Potentially, yeah. I've not thought about using mandrake seeds as ingredients to spells and such, but essentially you've got that connection there, that potential, which is quite interesting.
I think because obviously we talk about Saturnine energy mostly in limitation, but obviously it is the ultimate limitation, which means both limited and limitless. And I think lots of people don't think of the alternative. So they get used to thinking of Saturnine as cutting something off or restricting it. It also works both ways, where you have the potential to make something limitless, which is why it's the realm of transformation and transmutation, as well as being the ultimate limiter. So I think some a lot of the time it's important to kind of point out that the true power of Saturn goes a lot wider than that, and this being a Saturnine vessel really starts to push it in a way that you don't get from those that other plants that are slightly Saturnine. We are talking about it being a Saturnine vessel, not just
it's
a plant.
fucking birthed through the death process. I mean, you can't get much more saturnine than that. No. It's very powerful, but also very misunderstood. Because I think in order to truly work with the Mandrake, you'd probably have to really understand the saturnine current. Because otherwise, you know, and to be fair, I mean, it's complicated, isn't it, when it's stuff like that? Because there's greater, deeper levels of mystery. And working with the Mandrake, that could get you there if you're interested in learning those mysteries and that. Working with the Mandrake could reveal that kind of information through working with it, which is quite interesting. Yeah, so Mandrake seeds hold power. So yeah, pretty much anything Mandrake related, but like with a lot of things, you have to be capable of getting the power out there. Seed is essentially dormant. So you're talking dormant. It's not too dissimilar, I'd say, in terms of working like from one of your planetary yarns. You know, it's kind of like there's not a spirit there, but the thread there that you can pull on to pull the power through is there, but it's not going to radiate energy necessarily like shitloads out. So you've got to really have the skill to be able to pull that through. But I mean, the good thing about raising one is that you've started off from seed and you're growing that energy and you'll get to feel that. Certainly an interesting process. I didn't keep them for very long, but, you know, it was a very interesting process. Okay, so we've got our last comment, which is a tablespoon in a glass of water can set a dreamscape. Sit down before bed. Interesting comment before bedtime.
So I'm not sure if I'd go to bed with Mandrake.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would either.
I'd be worried I wasn't going to wake up the next day, but yeah, I trust you well. It's fine.
Right. So what are we covering next week then?
I'm not sure. This was because it was a categorical request from last week, but I'm sure we'll surprise them in the next few days.
We've got a big list, and I'm wondering whether we should do something like Muggle studies.
Okay.
We'll do Muggle studies next week. That's what we should do. So next week's going to be about Muggle studies. It's going to be about the witches, us working and living in the mundane world and how we go about interacting with the mundane people and the crazy ass shit that we forget is crazy ass and make fool out of ourselves because we say the wrong thing to mundanes and they don't think that we are. They think we bit cray cray. So we'll share a few stories and the like and talk about it. We'll try and talk about us from a muggle's perspective, a mundane's perspective. Because we is a bit weird, Chris. I know we don't think that, but we is a bit weird.
We ain't.
Well, you know, the mundanes would beg to differ. So here we go. And then there's the last thing, which is comment. So there we go.
Some tips for growing it.
2 years, yeah, there we go. Some tips for growing, which will be in the comments. So after this this feed ends, it should still be there. So you should be able to click on it. So see you later. And next week we're going to be talking Muggle studies, whatever the hell that means. So goodbye, everyone. Got a wave, Chris. Wave.
Oh,
you do the waving
Bye.
Thing. Bye. If you're tired of all the neo-pagan claptrap that's on the internet and want to see some real witchcraft, please subscribe to the Thoth TV YouTube channel. If you really want to kick things up a notch, try clicking the No Holds Barred podcast link.